I sold my morality for 50 million yuan. From then on, I got 50 million yuan and lost my character. So I went crazy at school, crazy outside, crazy on the internet, and crazy everywhere. At the school sports playground, Jiang He hit me with a basketball in front of the whole school and ordered me to buy him a bottle of water. Don't blame him for treating me like this. If it were in the past, I would definitely swallow this anger. Jiang He is my stepfather's son, 2 months younger than me. When my mother married his father, he taught me a lesson. He is my younger brother. He has no mother since he was a child. He is very pitiful. You should try to give in to him. Nian is the kindest girl in our family, right? I was kidnapped by morality, so since high school I have given in to Jiang He everywhere, but he is getting more and more. He ordered me not to disclose our relationship at school, and I often received orders from my mother to bring him some lunchboxes, clothes, etc. Over time, the whole school rumored that I was Jiang He's liquor. I tolerated him for 2 years, but I don't want to tolerate it today. I picked up the basketball and walked towards him. The boys around Jiang He laughed in 2s and 3s. I was quite obedient and knew to pick up the ball. Jiang He looked at me with contempt. The next second, I raised my hand and smashed the ball back viciously. Fuck you. Don't blame me for being so fierce. Just 3 days ago, a mysterious man found me and gave you 50 million to sell me your best qualities. I held my waist tightly with vigilance. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It wasn't his heart, but your morality. I realized it at that time. No wonder Jiang He was so rebellious. I could tolerate him for so long. It turned out that my best quality was morality. Under my eyes full of such good things, the man handed me a card. When I checked, there was really 50 million. Feeling elated with sudden wealth, I didn't stand up to give up my seat to an old man on the bus that day, and rolled my eyes and accused him, "Come on, auntie, you just chased the bus with more vigor than me, and you still need me to give up my seat." In the auntie's angry face, I slowly realized that I was really immoral, but it was really fucking cool. I didn't have much strength, and the basketball I threw over only made Jiang He stagger 2 steps, but my resistance was no less than a comet hitting the earth for him. His face was full of shock, and then turned into anger. He silently said, "But how dare you? Why don't I dare?" I rolled my eyes. Jiang He should have a limit to his push. In the past, I didn't say anything for the sake of my mother and your father. Do you really think I'm easy to bully? Jiang He covered his chest that I hit, and his anger rose and fell violently. "Believe it or not, I will tell your mother." I sneered. "You are so old and still complaining. You are not childish. Besides, you have other skills besides this trick. Can you threaten me?" Jiang He was speechless after being confronted by me. "I will continue to talk. The reason why Jiang He tolerated you before was not because you were so awesome, but because I had quality. You know, not only him but also the classmates who were watching were stunned." I smiled in return, deeply concealed my merits and fame, and turned away. I shouted too early. In the afternoon, I was blocked in the toilet by Jiang He's suitors who looked like illegitimate children. As soon as I came out of the cubicle, a basin of cold water was poured on my head. In the weather in November, I was chilled and excited. I was so angry that I calmed down and stared at them expressionlessly. Why did they dare to hit Jiang He? Go and apologize. I was often embarrassed by Jiang He's suitors before, and there were even more extreme ones than this, but I never resisted based on the principle of keeping things quiet. They thought I was easy to bully. I took a deep breath, looked at the 2 arrogant faces in front of me, and suddenly reached out to grab their necks. I pressed them into the water in the sink. They screamed and fluttered me without mercy until their legs were weak and they knelt on the ground. When I came out of the toilet again, I was smiling, wearing the clean school uniforms that I had taken off them, and my wet clothes were on them. Before leaving, I specifically reminded them to wash the clothes and return them to me tomorrow, understand? These 2 girls didn't bother me all day, but what I didn't expect was that Jiang He actually took the initiative to find me. He was in the class next to me. When I was concentrating on doing my homework, he knocked on the windowsill. What was he doing? Jiang He threw a stack of homework on my desk. He had to hand it in tomorrow after finishing it today. When he was busy before, he would occasionally ask me to help him with his homework. So I even practiced the same cursive script as him, but today I watched him do it himself expressionlessly. He was stunned for a moment, as if he didn't expect me to refuse. He looked at me with strange eyes while holding the homework, silently saying that you took the wrong medicine today. Just as the bell rang, I packed up my things and said that from now on, you will do your homework by yourself. Who knew that Jiang He frowned, looked like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water, and said in an imperative tone that I was going to play games today, and you must finish your homework for me. When the words of refusal came to my lips, I suddenly smiled, took his homework and stuffed it into his school bag, then said with a smile before leaving, "Since you are going to the internet cafe, I will call the driver first. We have a driver in our family who is hired to take us to school, but Jiang He always uses various ways to call the driver away alone, and every time I have to squeeze on the bus." After saying that, I ran away with my school bag saying, "Hey Mo Nian, But Jiang He was furious behind me and his voice came. When I got home, my mother was staring at a table full of food in a daze. I dropped my school bag and walked over. Mom, Uncle Jiang hasn't come back yet. No. My mother shook her head and looked behind me again. Where's the son? Why isn't he with you? I sat down at the dining table expressionlessly. He went to the internet cafe to play games. My mother opened her eyes in surprise. In the past, every time Jiang He sneaked away to the internet cafe in the game hall, I would always cover for him. I washed my hands and was about to eat, but my mother patted my hands and said, "Don't worry, wait for them." As she said that, she went to call Jiang He and Uncle Jiang, but no one answered after several calls, and his face became more and more ugly. I looked at her expressionlessly and said, "Don't wait, eat if you are hungry, and put the remaining food in the kitchen to heat up. I feel a little uncomfortable, so I'll go back to my room to rest first." My mother pressed her eyebrows and went into the room with a sigh. I ate the meal in no time and looked at the table full of sumptuous dishes that were almost untouched. After thinking for 2 seconds, I walked towards the trash can with the plate. Jiang He came home at 11 o'clock in the middle of the night. He walked to the kitchen with his hands and feet, opened the door, and saw that there was nothing to eat. He was immediately angry. What did Aunt Lee shout about? I yawned and walked out with a frown blocking Jiang He's words. "You are screaming in the middle of the night." He stared at me, his eyebrows almost raised to the sky. "Didn't your mother cook today? Why is there nothing to eat in the kitchen?" I said, "Oh," and replied lightly, "I cooked." In the trash can, Jiang He couldn't believe it. He opened the trash can and saw that it was all poured in. He pointed at the trash can with a sullen face. "You poured it in, yeah, why don't you come back to eat at dinner time? Who can I blame? Do you think this is a home or a restaurant?" I took out a box of milk from the refrigerator with a normal expression and put it in the microwave to heat it up. While waiting, I admired Jiang He's expression as if he had eaten a fly. "I haven't eaten for a whole day and you actually poured out dinner." Jiang He was so angry that he cursed. The next second, I covered his mouth with a rag soaked in detergent. "What are you doing?" he asked me vaguely. I smiled. "Your mouth is too dirty. Wash it." Under Jiang He's furious expression, I slowly walked towards the room with the hot milk. Jiang He pulled off the rag in a rage and glared at me while washing his mouth, thinking to myself, "How dare you do this to me?" I happened to walk to the door of the room. Hearing this, I slightly leaned against the doorframe and smiled nonchalantly. "Oh, what should I do? If it doesn't work, call the police." Jiang He was so angry that he couldn't sleep all night. The next day, he had 2 huge dark circles under his eyes. He sat at the dining table with a gloomy face and fried eggs. "Aunt Lee, didn't I tell you that I don't eat eggs?" He threw his chopsticks pickily and sat there with a scowl. "Sorry, I forgot." My mother sighed. I walked to the dining table and sat down. With a snap, I threw the homework that Jiang He gave me in front of him. "You can't do it yourself. Do you think my mom is your servant?" Jiang He frowned at my cold gaze. "You ate dynamite so early in the morning." "Yes, so don't mess with me or I'll blow you to death." Seeing that it was getting late, Jiang He stuffed the homework into his school bag and hurried out to snatch the driver from me. So funny. I have 50 million now, so I still have money to take a taxi. Before going out, I looked at my mother's haggard look, raised my eyebrows and asked, "Uncle Jiang didn't come back last night?" My mother was stunned. Well, maybe because she saw that I was in a bad mood, she softly defended him. "He called me last night and said that he was too busy to accompany the client for dinner. It was late, so I took a rest outside. She also recorded a video of the hotel for me." "No problem, where is the video?" My mother is a weak woman, she has never had any opinions, and she always believes whatever Uncle Jiang says. She handed the phone to me and just glanced at the video. It took a full-scale video of the hotel room. It was indeed only him, but there were 2 pairs of shoes in the corner of the shoe cabinet. After arriving at the classroom, everyone handed in their homework one after another. I was responsible for collecting English homework. Several old-timers in the class looked at me pitifully. "Nian, but I didn't feel well when I went home last night and forgot to do my homework. Can you help me to talk to the teacher? It's a self-torture trick. They used to use it often." I nodded and passed by them. However, after the first class, they were invited into the office by the English teacher, and Jiang He was also invited in. After another 5 minutes, a girl called me with gloating. "The teacher asked you to go to the office." The atmosphere in the office was quiet and depressing. The physics teacher and the English teacher both looked unhappy. The old man with his head down was standing in front of the English teacher's desk and being scolded. Jiang He was full of anger. When he saw me come in, he pointed at me and said, "Teacher, it was he who wrote it." The physics old man was always strict. He turned his face sideways and threw a homework book in front of me. All I could see was 2 big black signature pen writing the words "What you wrote" on the blank homework book, occupying the entire page. The stupid physics old man's face turned green with anger. Jiang He was naturally not much better. He must have been scolded. At this moment, I thought about all the sad things in my life, and then I tried hard to maintain myself and not laugh out loud. The atmosphere in the office was very silent. I stared at the old man's Mediterranean face in the fog and said with a stern face that it was not written by me. As soon as I finished speaking, Jiang He pointed at my nose and said, "He lied and I lied." Jiang He, "Well, let me ask you, this is your homework. Why did I dare to scribble on it?" Jiang He's expression froze for a moment. He who had just pointed at me and shouted was speechless. Right, there is nothing to say, right? If he keeps pestering me and forcing me to copy his homework, the matter of homework will be exposed. I rolled my eyes and looked at the old man in the room, with an extremely sincere look in my eyes and said, "Teacher, he didn't do his homework himself and he wanted to frame me. You are so wise and righteous, you will definitely not be fooled by him, right?" The old man has been teaching physics for decades and is very smart. Looking at me at this moment and then at Jiang He, who was angry and speechless, what else is there that he doesn't understand? He put his hand on the homework, looked up and said to me, "Go back first, you are so tired." I turned and walked out. When I reached the door, I happened to hear the old man in the room full of anger saying, "Please invite your parents over tomorrow." Hearing this, I subconsciously raised my eyebrows. Not long after returning to the classroom, Jiang He came back with the homework with a gloomy face. He threw the homework on my desk and asked Munyenka, "Are you crazy?" As a topic figure on campus. As soon as he appeared, the classmates around him gathered around. I rolled my eyes and said, "Crazy?" Jiang He was stunned, gritted his teeth and said, "You wait for me." He finished his threats and was about to leave, but I suddenly stood up, grabbed his clothes, pushed him down on the desk and chair in front of me and looked down at him. Everything happened too fast. The onlookers hadn't reacted yet. They saw me clamping Jiang He between the seat and me. They immediately boiled and booed, but I lowered my body amid the booing and said in just the right volume, "Don't wait. If you have anything to say, just say it now." Jiang He was stunned. I let him go and said coldly, "It's not illegal for a madman to go crazy. You can try it. Now am I still afraid of your threat?" Jiang He's licking dog stopped licking. This news was like a gust of wind, blowing all over the school. In the afternoon I found those girls from yesterday and asked for my school uniform jacket back. Maybe I have been so aggressive in the past 2 days that they shrank when they saw me, but did not make things difficult for me. As soon as the school bell rang, Jiang He and his group of brothers rushed out like a gust of wind. I walked slowly to the school gate, and sure enough, the driver had been called away. I rolled my eyes, raised my hand to stop a taxi, and said I was going to Hengtian Real Estate Agency, which is the largest real estate agency in the city. I walked into the lobby and the receptionist came up to me and asked, "Little sister, are you looking for someone?" "No," I shook my head and said, "I'm buying a house." The receptionist was stunned and asked me in confusion, "Are you an adult?" I took out my ID and said I wanted to buy Fumin Garden. Before coming, I went to the bank next to the agency and checked the 50 million in the card. Not a penny was missing, so as to avoid any more trouble, it would be better to turn the money into my fixed assets. The receptionist quickly called the agency, and the agency took out the information and gave it to me in great detail. He introduced Fumin Garden and took me to see a house. Fumin Garden is a community with a good environment in the city. The price is medium to high. You can buy a good floor for 50 million, and you can move in immediately. The reason I know about this place is because I once heard my stepfather and mother discuss that when he makes money, he will bring us here to buy a house. My mother is very yearning for this place. After I finished looking at the house, I quickly negotiated with the agent and agreed to sign the contract on the weekend. When I got home, it was already 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I pushed open the door and heard a fierce quarrel breaking out inside. I changed my shoes and went into the house with an expressionless face. I glanced casually and found that my adoptive father was half lying on the sofa with a very impatient expression. My mother stood aside and looked at him with tears in her eyes. Jiang He was sitting on the ground playing games, as if it was none of his business. When he saw me come in, he raised his lips at me sarcastically and said, "Just cry, cry, cry. I'm working hard outside to make money. I asked you to take care of the child at home, but you can't even take care of the child well, and you still have the nerve to cry." The adoptive father opened his mouth, frowning and questioning the mother. The mother bit her lip and retorted that Xiao He never told me about what happened in school, and I didn't know about his homework situation. What's the point of blaming me? Shouldn't you blame yourself? The adoptive father looked up, caught a glimpse of me in the corner of his eye and sneered, "You are finally back." I put down my school bag. My expression was indifferent. "Well, what's wrong?" The adoptive father raised his eyebrows. "What's wrong? What do you think? You caused Jiang He to be asked to send his parents to school today, and the teacher asked me to go tomorrow. Whose people do you think were lost?" I said, "Oh," and laughed. "Anyway, it wasn't my people who were lost. Jiang He didn't allow me to be in school, saying that I was his sister." "What does this have to do with me?" I heard Jiang He say it all. "If you admitted that you wrote it at the time, would there be so many things?" "If I admitted that I wrote it at the time, now it would be my mother who was asked to send his parents to school. This was originally written by you. It was me who wrote it. Otherwise you can ask the police to arrest me." I did not back down at all. I looked at my adoptive father expressionlessly and pressed forward step by step. His brows were deeply knitted and he looked at me in surprise. I knew what he was surprised about. He often complained at home, and it was not once or twice. In the past, I always endured it. I had never refuted him like I did today. My adoptive father's chest heaved violently. When he found that he could not argue with me, he turned and glared at my mother saying, "Look at what a good daughter you have taught me." My mother opened her mouth to defend me saying, "Nianku is right. Okay, this is your attitude, to deal with it." My adoptive father was so angry that he sat up straight, pointed at my mother and cursed, "I work hard outside to make money, and when I come home I have to endure your anger. I don't think I can stay in this family anymore." After he finished speaking, he stood up, grabbed his coat and walked to the door, pushed me and said, "When you realize your mistake, I will come back." Then there was a loud slam of the door, and the room returned to silence again. My mother covered her mouth. Face kept sighing. Jiang He stopped playing games, stood up and swung the broom against my mother and me. "Star," this is his catchphrase to scold us. The story of his father and my mother is a bit complicated. They were childhood sweethearts from the same village. His father dumped my mother for his future, and later they got married. Jiang He's father's wife died. My mother and my father quarreled all the time and couldn't get divorced. They reunited after many years and formed a new family. Jiang He always felt that his misfortune came from my mother. If it was in the past, we would have just listened and it would have been over. But his father's dead look made me more and more angry, and my only remaining rationality collapsed. I looked up indifferently. "What did you say?" Jiang He still didn't realize the seriousness of the problem. "I said that your family are all jinxes. You and your mother are too. You live in our house, but you are so ungrateful. If it weren't for my father, you and your mother would have been sleeping on the streets long ago. How dare you argue with my father? And even made him angry and leave, he chattered. She kept talking, getting more and more excited. My mother's head was lowered lower and she was about to cry. I nodded and walked into the kitchen calmly. When I came out, I had a kitchen knife in my hand. The blade was shiny and shone with a silvery white light. I said to Jiang He, come on, repeat what you just said to me. I got up in the middle of the night to drink water and saw that my mother's door was ajar. There was movement inside. She was still awake. I walked over quietly without any awareness that peeping was wrong. My mother was calling my stepfather, but unfortunately she called several times but the other party didn't answer. Later, the phone was even turned off. After closing the door, I thought for 2 seconds, went to the study and found the documents he had been sorting out recently, then went back to the room and called the real estate agent. The other party was still not resting. I said straight to the point that I had changed my mind and we could sign the contract tomorrow afternoon. My adoptive father came to school the next day and acted as if he didn't see me. Not only that, I keenly noticed that he changed his clothes. He didn't go home all night last night, so I changed my clothes today. After school, I got in the real estate agent's car and went to the company. The contract signing process went smoothly. The other party saw that I was a student and gave me a big discount. After buying the house, there was still more than 800,000 yuan left in the card. I asked the agent to accompany me to see the house, made a list, and asked him to buy the remaining furniture and necessities for me. After everything was finally settled, he invited me to have a meal at the hotel where my adoptive father was staying. During the meal, the agent sighed and said that he was so capable at such a young age, and his future was promising. I smiled and nodded perfunctorily, but my eyes were fixed on the entrance of the hotel. Just when we were about to finish eating, I finally saw that familiar figure. In an instant, my eyes looking at the agent became unusually warm. I needed your help with something. I told the agent that it was my father's idea to buy a house, and he is now in the hotel, waiting for the agent uncle to come over. The agent smiled charmingly and asked me which room. I said, oh, I forgot, otherwise asked the front desk, so I asked him to take out his business card and then took out the documents that had been prepared long ago. After some arguments, the front desk finally agreed, took out the universal room card and wanted to take us there. I held his hand and said, don't worry, it's not time yet. I walked aside, took out my cell phone and started making calls. Second uncle, yes, it's Nianku. My dad said he wants to treat you to dinner. It's at Wansheng Hotel. Yes, you guys come quickly now. Third sister-in-law, he said he has done the thing you asked my dad to help you with last time, so you can come to Wansheng Hotel now. Sixth aunt, my dad said that the matter of my cousin going to high school has been discussed, so you can bring your whole family to Wansheng Hotel. The teacher is here. Yes, the whole family should come. After hanging up the phone, I breathed a sigh of relief. These relatives are all from my adoptive father's side, and they have all been noted in the family group. I picked a few people who liked to speak in the group and called them one by one. Most of the people in my adoptive father's family were in the city. They quickly rushed to the hotel after receiving the call. A dozen of them surrounded me. Didn't you say your dad was looking for us? Yes, where is he? I smiled at them. He's waiting for you in the room. Come with me. When I came back, more than a dozen relatives followed me. The front desk clerk and the agent were shocked and no longer doubted the authenticity of what I said. After all my relatives were here. The front desk clerk took us to the third floor with the room card and stopped outside a room. I stood on the second floor of the team and silently called out the live broadcast function of my mobile phone. I stuck the room card on the door and it opened with a click. My sixth aunt took the lead. My eldest grandson's schooling was the most urgent, so she let me go in first. After that, she raised her neck and entered the room shouting loudly, Gongzi, where are you? Gongzi. The rest of the relatives followed him and entered the room in a mighty manner. Everyone made a lot of noise, but even so this could not cover up the louder noise in the bedroom. The sounds of crying and laughing reached everyone's ears. They had no doubts at first, only the intermediary frowned, and suddenly realized that sixth aunt heard the noise in the bedroom and immediately walked over with her withered hand on the door handle. Seeing this, the intermediary tried to stop her but failed. As sixth aunt hurriedly opened the bedroom door, the eye-catching scene inside was exposed to everyone's eyes. Two white figures overlapped, caught everyone's eyes and on my mobile phone screen. 3 seconds later, screams resounded throughout the room. The woman inside was shouting, and sixth aunt outside was also shouting. Those who didn't know thought it was sixth aunt who was cheated. I watched the live broadcast room suddenly soar to several thousand. The number of people raised their phones a little higher, and I said in a loud voice, my friends, I'm catching my adoptive father cheating. If you like it, please pay attention and give me some small gifts. As the chaotic shouting rang out, the adoptive father finally came to his senses. He responded with lightning speed. I quickly wrapped the woman up and put on my clothes and pants and drove us out. Who allowed you to come in? Get out now. However, how could I let him succeed so easily? I set up my phone to make sure I could record the scene. The next second I yelled and rushed over. You actually messed around behind my mother's back. I pounced on him, tore off his clothes and bed sheets, scratched and beat him, pulled the bed sheets open, exposing the woman to everyone's sight. Under my obstruction, the clothes he had just put on were stripped off again, and he had to be naked. Facing my beating, my adoptive father was startled, and when he came to his senses, he pushed me and said, You're crazy, get out of here. If I don't, I'll teach you a lesson from my mother. I was very cruel. My adoptive father had to protect his poor clothes to cover the fat on his body, and at the same time he had to avoid my attacks. He was overwhelmed and covered with scars. After a moment of stunned silence, all the relatives came to pull me. I took advantage of the chaos to twist their hands and feet, and they were forced to hit my adoptive father. The whole room was in chaos like the war of the century. The front desk came to their senses and called the police. 15 minutes later, my adoptive father was covered in wounds and naked, as if he had been beaten up. He stood in the police station with a group of us. His lover stared at me with resentment, then turned around and cried and threw herself into my adoptive father's arms. My adoptive father patted the woman distressfully, and looked at me with a sinister look, with a stormy haze. The police came in again, followed by my haggard mother and a shocked face. Jiang He, my mother's eyes were red and swollen. Obviously she had cried in the car. At this moment, seeing the woman in the adoptive father's arms, how could she not understand anything? But now the adoptive father has also given up, pointing at my mother's nose and scolding, "Look at the good daughter you raised." My mother protected me behind her and asked me with concern, "Are you okay?" I shook my head. The adoptive father interrupted us and said, "Of course I'm fine. It's me who is in trouble, you little bastard. You eat my food and use my things and you dare to hit me. You are so young and you are not a good person. You follow me and cheat me for wine. The store and so many relatives, his mind is so sinister, comrade police, you must severely punish him for beating people in public." I ignored him, rolled my eyes, turned to the police and said, "Uncle Police, he solicited prostitution and hugged the woman." Veins popped out. "Don't say that Xiaoyun is a girl from a decent family," I said. "Oh," and stared at the woman. "A decent girl? Would she go to a hotel to get a room with a married man?" The woman blushed, and argued with her next stiff brother. "Gongzi and I are truly in love." I nodded and asked again, "Truly in love? You, if he admits that we were in love, then it would be illegal." Of course he is not that stupid. I continued to say that we were not in love, nor married, but we checked into a hotel. If it was not prostitution, then it was nothing else. You did this behind my mother's back. Even if I beat you up, it would be for the sake of justice and to eliminate harm for the people. Anyway, I am right. My adoptive father's face turned pale and blue. Seeing this, Jiang He frowned and blamed me, thinking to himself, "But you are so vicious. My father doesn't mind your mother being a burden. He took you with him, gave you food and shelter. This is how you repay us." As soon as I said this, my mother was unhappy. "I also have a job and I contribute to the family expenses. How can your father raise us alone?" I secretly gave my mother a thumbs up and glared at Jiang He, saying that my mother was a burden to me. "What about your father? If the prostitute and his son tell others, who will be more embarrassed?" You and Jiang He were so angry that your faces turned blue. The police finally couldn't stand it anymore and said, "Stop arguing. Everyone cooperate with our investigation." I am upright and cooperative. I will definitely cooperate well. It was late at night when we finished taking the statements. A group of us came out of the police station. My adoptive father was forced to pay a fine, but nothing happened to my mother and me. The cold wind calmed everyone down. My adoptive father wrapped the woman named Xiaoyun with his coat, but watched my mother and me coldly. At this point, our two sides have torn their faces apart. My mother looked haggard, looking at my adoptive father with hesitation. He turned to the side and said to her with disgust that they would go to the divorce procedures tomorrow. "You and I can't live a day together." I went downstairs. "Also, move out of my house immediately after the divorce," he said, and left angrily with Xiaoyun and Jiang He. Before leaving, Jiang He glanced at me, sneered and said silently, "But you and your mother are divorced and we don't even have a place to live. Let's see what you can do." My mother's pupils shrank, but she said nothing. Although she had deep feelings for her adoptive father before, after experiencing all these things, she had long seen through this man and gave up on him. In the taxi, I held my mother's hand tightly. She patted me comfortingly and sighed. "I was very depressed when your father and I just divorced. It was your adoptive father who stayed by my side to comfort me and gave me support. I didn't expect that all men in the world are the same. I said it's okay, it's better to get divorced. It's unfortunate to be with such a man." My mother shook her head. "I'm not afraid of divorce, but we don't have a house in the city. My current salary is not enough to rent a school district house near your school. I can only let you in trouble in the future." I blinked and suddenly smiled. I'm not wronged. After saying that, I said to the driver, Uncle, please go to Fumin Garden." At the door of 601 Fumin Garden, the agent was greeting us warmly. The workers were moving my new furniture inside. As soon as I showed up with my mother, the agent came up to us warmly and said, "Student Lee, now you are here, take a look. All the things have arrived. Is there anything else you need to buy?" As soon as the words fell, a question mark slowly appeared on my mother's face. I pulled her into the house excitedly and said, "Mom, we will live here in the future. My mother couldn't believe that you bought this house." I nodded. He asked me where the money came from, so I told him about the betrayal of morality. After listening, he had a complicated expression and kept looking at me, asking if I was okay. I wanted to laugh. What could have happened to me? My mother looked like she was living in a dream. I still felt unreliable. Who would give someone 50 million for nothing? It's not a small amount. I don't feel at ease living in this house. That's why I bought the house. My name is on the property certificate. Even if he comes to me to ask for money, it's not so easy to ask for it. Besides, the house has been bought, let's live here first and talk about the future later. My mother hesitated for a moment, but soon, the joy of the new house overcame her worries, and my mother did not bring up the issue of selling morality again. The next day was Saturday, and I accompanied my mother to go through the divorce procedures with my adoptive father. When she was packing her things, my adoptive father stood by and watched with his arms folded. Maybe it was the residual feelings at work, or maybe it was for some other reason. Before my mother stepped out of the house, my adoptive father called her with a condescending look on his face and said, "If you are willing to send Munyenka, this burden, to his father, then I will consider not divorcing you and starting a new life with you." After they got married, although they lived in my adoptive father's house, all the daily necessities in the house were actually bought by my mother. Based on the principle of not leaving a penny for them, I even packed up the toilet brush and took it away. Oh, and there was also half a bottle of toilet cleaner in the toilet. Because it was special, I didn't put it with other things but just put it in my hand. Who knew that as soon as I walked to the door, I heard my adoptive father's shameless words. My mother's eyes widened, her face flushed, and she was about to refute. The next second I rushed out of the house and shouted, "Mom!" Let my mother subconsciously took a few steps back. My adoptive father heard the sound, frowned, turned around and was about to scold me. But half a bottle of toilet cleaner fell from the sky, and the water in it was poured all over him without a drop of water. At the same time I took out the toilet brush, poked him and said loudly, "It smells like shit. Come, let me wash it for you." He finally exploded, unable to bear it any longer, and went through the divorce procedures with my mother at the fastest speed in his life, and kicked us out of the house. He was also successfully sent to the hospital because of us. The cold wind blew from the street, and my mother and I looked at each other. Where shall we go now? Let's eat hot pot. Such a good day, of course we have to celebrate. So half an hour later, when Jiang He and his group of brothers stepped into the hot pot restaurant, they saw us who were almost crying from the spiciness. Jiang He stopped and looked at us in surprise. My mother also saw him. Based on the principle that elders should not argue with the younger ones, he raised his hand and greeted us. Unexpectedly, Jiang He raised his chin and walked past us as if he didn't see us. His pretending not to see didn't mean that his followers didn't see it. These boys are brainless. He flattered him and said, "Brother Sun, Moonyen's mom is greeting you." Wow, that's amazing. His mom actually knows Brother Sun. It shows that Moonyen often mentions you to his mom. Brother Sun doesn't even pay attention to him. His whole family knows Brother Sun. Unfortunately, the flattery backfired. Seeing that Jiang He's face was getting uglier and uglier, when he finally couldn't stand it anymore, my mom said to Jiang He as if no one was around, "Although your father and I are divorced and I have no right to control you, your father is in the hospital now. If you don't go to visit him." Jiang He stood up as if his butt was burned, with a look of astonishment written all over his face. It's over. The relationship between him and me can't be hidden after all. The boys next to me are shocked. What the hell did I hear? Monyen, his mother and Jiang He's father, they can't be the kind of relationship I thought. Jiang He didn't bother to explain at this moment. He walked over in 3 or 2 steps, staring at me. "What did you do to my dad?" I boiled a piece of tripe in the bottom of the pot, and said while holding back the tears from the spiciness, "Who knows? He was stabbed twice and went to the hospital. If you want to see him, hurry up, otherwise it will heal itself in a while." I saw the veins on his forehead bulging and asked a little unbearable, "What does it mean to poke and grunt twice?" I glanced at him with a complicated look, and pulled out the toilet brush from the side in front of him. "Eager to try this, do you want to try it?" Jiang He left in a rage, and the next time I saw him was on Monday when school started. Our relationship was also exposed. The girls who were hostile to me in the past stared at me with complicated and flattering eyes for the first time. I silently thought that I could send something to Jiang He before. It turned out that it was all the instructions of my family. Then we all misunderstood him, but why didn't Jiang He explain? Vanity, after all, Moonyen Ku herself, the conditions are pretty good, I said. With his conditions, he doesn't need to be a bootlicker. You didn't say that last time. But the news of my mom and his dad's divorce spread like wildfire, and classmates looked at us with twists and turns, but we didn't have time to respond because the adoptive father was really sick, drinking and staying up late in his early years, almost overdrawing his already weak body. This time I abandoned him, and he lay in bed for a whole week, and he, the baby Xiaoyun, took the things he bought and left the city overnight the day after he was hospitalized. Perhaps it was because people had left and the tea had forgotten him. My adoptive father felt lonely and suddenly began to miss my mother's kindness. So, the first thing he did after he was discharged from the hospital was to find my mother and complain. Once my mother saw through him, she would not turn back even if she was pulled by 10 cows. He did not answer any of my adoptive father's calls, and even blocked all unfamiliar numbers. This went on for almost a month and he finally caught us. At the end of term parent-teacher meeting, he stopped me and my mother at the school gate. My adoptive father looked at me and my mother very sincerely, and I realize now that you are the best to me. Come back and let's live a good life. I stood on the roadside and hailed a taxi and asked him, "Please move out of the way." My adoptive father held back his impatience and continued, "Look, you don't even have a car to travel, let alone a house. With your monthly salary of 6,000 yuan, you can only rent a small apartment in this city. As long as you are willing to come back, we will pretend that what happened in the past never happened. You and Yan Ku can still continue to live in my house." When the car came, I was the first to stuff my mother into the car. My adoptive father held the door tightly. "Yan Ku, you should also persuade your mother. Otherwise, with your current living environment, how can you study well?" I closed the door expressionlessly. Who, knowing that my adoptive father still did not give up, he stopped a car and followed us. The 2 cars bypassed the noisy road and finally stopped at the gate of Fuming Garden Community. My adoptive father chased after me with wide eyes and asked, "What are you doing here?" I walked into the community and stood at the gate and said, "Of course I'm going home." He couldn't believe it. "You live here?" "Yes, how is it possible? Your mother earns 6,000 yuan a month. How can she afford to live in Fuming Garden? You must have lied to me for face and fire." His expression gradually became ferocious. The next second, I raised my hand to swipe the card and stepped into the community. I saw the iron gate slowly behind me. Slowly closing the door, I smiled mockingly at my adoptive father through the iron door. His eyes turned red with anger. I walked forward a few steps, thought of something, and turned back to remind him that although the doctor told you to be less angry, there is one thing I still want to remind you. He stopped pretending and stared at me with gritted teeth. "What?" I raised my cell phone at him and asked him if he could spend less time on the internet. Of course, my adoptive father was not really repentant. He just treated me and my mother as a dog that could be summoned and dismissed at will with a condescending attitude. What could be worse than you finding out that you have always looked down on me, and needed to depend on me? What is more infuriating, if there is one thing, it must be that my adoptive father, the live video of him being caught cheating, was posted on the internet and it became a hot topic. Countless insults followed, and photoshopped photos and human flesh searches were considered light punishments. His behavior was even reported in the official news and criticized. For a time, even the neighbors who seldom went online knew about his scandal. My adoptive father's mother, the tough old lady with one foot in the coffin, came all the way from the countryside to the city, pointed at his nose and scolded him. "I don't have a loser like you. The son of someone else, oh, he has become an orphan." Then, those clients he had discussed cooperation with before also terminated their cooperation one after another. The speed of blacklisting was shocking. Hey, this job is also ruined. The adoptive father was so angry that he was admitted to the hospital again. But even in the hospital, when he was awake, he would hear the young nurses outside pointing fingers at him in their spare time. It was him. The man who cheated and beat prostitutes was really disgusting. I didn't even want to check his ward. He was a scumbag among men. Next time I give him an injection, I must use a lot of force. As the situation escalated, Jiang He finally couldn't stand it anymore and found me. At first, his attitude was relatively calm and he asked me to come forward to clarify. I looked at him indifferently and said, "Clarify, do you want me to lie in front of so many audiences across the country?" Jiang He looked at me with disdain. I said, "Oh," without any sense of guilt. No, Jiang He's chest rose and fell violently. His patience finally reached its limit. He pointed at me and questioned Moonyan, "But if you pissed him off to death, you would also be accused of morality. Can your conscience really go on? Morality?" I raised my eyebrows and smiled meaningfully. "You may not believe it when I say it, but I sold morality." He didn't believe me and thought I was playing a trick on him. He angrily kicked the stool in front of me and left in a rage. The next day, Jiang He's throwing a tantrum and morally blackmailing me became popular on the internet again. So the number of people who were forced to face the pressure of online public opinion increased from 1 to 2. They left the city 2 days later and even went through the withdrawal procedures without my permission, as if I were some kind of plague. For a long time, I was the nightmare that the father and son next door talked about. I finally understood that the only way to deal with shameless people is to abandon morality and be even more uncultured than them. The end.